Gang, I have had Blue Apron dinner many, many times. Unbelievably easy to prepare and taste so good. Blue Apron is the leading meal kit delivery service in the U.S., and while many people know what they do, many don't know about the types of meals you can eat when you cook with Blue Apron. How do these sound? Baked tilapia, creamy kale, and frigola sarda pasta, sheet pan roasted pork with fall vegetables and creamy maple mustard, chili butter steaks with lemon parmesan broccoli and potatoes, creamy tomato pasta with mushroom and collard greens. Blue Apron delivers fresh, pre-portioned ingredients, step-by-step recipes that are very easy to follow right to your door. That can be cooked in under 45 minutes. The menu changes every week based on what's in season and is designed by Blue Apron's in-house culinary team. Blue Apron offers 12 new recipes each week, and customers can pick 2, 3, or 4 recipes based on what best fits their schedule. Blue Apron sends only non-GMO ingredients and meat with no added hormones. Blue Apron is treating Golic and Wingo listeners to their first dinner, a $30 value if you visit blueapron.com/Golic. So check out this week's menu. Get your $30 off with free shipping at blueapron.com/Golic. Blue Apron. It's a better way to cook.
With the Citi Double Cash Card, you get 1% cash back when you buy and 1% as you pay. That's like the joy of discovering the last donut.
Ooh.
And it has your name on it, literally, in chocolate sprinkly things.
No way.
Double the love with the Citi Double Cash Card. Apply now at Citi.com/doublecash.
Golic and Wingo, hour number 3 on ESPN Radio and ESPN2. We are, as always, presented by Progressive Insurance, and all phone guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. We will have Kirk Herbstreit coming up in just a few minutes to talk about not only the college football playoff, but also the Heisman finalists. And again, always take the long play, kids.
Yes.
Always take the long play, because in mid-October, it was Saquon Barkley this, Saquon Barkley that. And by the way, he's still going to be a fine NFL prospect.
Is. Yeah,
might end up being the number 1 player taken in the draft still.
It's possible.
I think he's still on number 1 on Mel's big board, but again, not one of the 3 finalists invited to the Heisman ceremony this weekend. So we'll have a lot to get into with Herbie in just a little bit. But continuing the discussion we've had off the Monday night game, first of all, epic comeback by the Pittsburgh Steelers. Again, they were down 17 points on the road. Going into last night, they had played 154 of those games in franchise history and had been 2-152. So now they've played 155 of those games, and they are 3-152.
Yeah.
Remarkable turnaround. That's storyline number 1. Storyline number 2, obviously big concerns about Steeler linebacker Ryan Shazier. There does seem to be some optimism there. Right. We heard from one of his teammates telling our Jeremy Fowler he did have feeling in his extremities. The Steelers released a statement. They're talking about potentially moving him to Pittsburgh today. If there were real concerns, that would not be part of the discussion.
Right. Would not be leaving
look,
that.
We're no way out of the woods yet,
No.
but we do feel like that's moving in a positive direction for him. And then the third part of the story last night, Mike, was just the overall chippiness of the game, 239 yards in penalties. We talk about some big hits. George Iloka is going to get a fine for the hit he put on Antonio Brown. Juju Smith-Schuster is going to get a fine for the hit on Vontaze Burfict. And just whether or not in the current age that we're in, whether all of this is a good look for the NFL or not.
Yeah, I don't think it's a good look for the NFL. And of those penalty yards, the Bengals had 173 yards of them, so not a great night for them at all, especially having a 17-0 lead and then losing the game, which, oh, by the way, is one of the last things we've brought up and how this could have kept them in the playoff hunt, but now they're going to basically be out of this and where Pittsburgh is in relation to New England. But the look of these teams, especially over the last couple of years with the bad blood, with the hits, with the other injuries that have taken effect, with the suspensions that have gone on, a lot of the hits by Vontaze Burfict and what he's done over the last couple of years. In this one, he was actually carted off the field, did get up off of and was walked into
and gave
the
us
locker
the thumbs
room
up.
right under his own power. So that was good to hear on a Juju Smith-Schuster hit, which he was flagged for unnecessary roughness and then for taunting over the top of it. I did get a tweet that said the Juju hit was fine. He used his shoulder. It was textbook. Caught him in the head some. He did lead with his shoulder. Grant you that. But part of his helmet caught Vontaze in the helmet, and they're going to call that every time.
Correct.
And they're normally going to fine you for that as well. It's where we are. It's one thing people need to accept. I think at times they've gone over the top. I've said this many times to where they will throw a flag more off for safety reason or say
we thought it looked a certain way. Yeah.
And then you'll see it in replay and you'll say it did not deserve a flag. And the one thing, a flag doesn't get picked up. You may not get fined, but the flag ain't getting picked up. Yeah. So because they're not reviewing it at all, so it's still going to cost you. So at times I think they've gone too far on that. But we're in an era, gang, where safety is number one. We're learning more and more, and we'll continue to learn more and more. Players are bigger, faster, and stronger, just like in every other sport. So the collisions at times can be more violent. So is this eventually going to fall on the players to do better? You even heard Juju Schuster-Smith even say after the game, maybe he should have pulled up a little bit on the hit. Right. Like maybe instead of knocking him down the way he did, just get in front of him. Just screen him to where he's not going to get to the play, but you don't have to basically knock him out, which in my day of playing, which wasn't that long ago, even up to 10 years
Less
ago.
Than 10 years ago.
This was still the way you did business. It wasn't, I'm not going to screen the guy. I am going to blow him up, and I'm going to hit him as hard as I possibly can. Will players start to I think players are already starting to take their head out of the game, though you still see it some. Iloku led with his head. Yep. Iloku led with his head. He's going to pay for that one. But I do think guys are using their shoulder more, keeping their head out of it more. So they are adjusting to it. But you wonder, will players kind of police themselves on the field a little bit and not go for the big hit as much?
Well, to that point, this was Bengals head coach Marvin Lewis after the game talking about the physicality and the idea of players policing themselves.
Is it on the players now to police themselves a little bit better?
I don't.
As far as the hitting and the late hits and the hitting of the helmet?
Well, again, I can't comment on what I don't understand your question. There's things in place to police this, but I don't know what play you're talking about in question or whatever. So you're making a general statement, and probably not for me to make a general comment.
I think you meant, Marvin, should players police themselves, and the league's kind of done all it can do in terms of suspensions.
Well, I think the game has changed. I don't know what play in particular you're referring to. If there's difference.
A lot of them.
Yeah, football is a physical sport.
Well, it certainly is, but I think that the concern, and I've seen a lot of reactions from former players on Twitter today talking about how what happened last night was not a good look for the NFL.
It wasn't, and let's understand, two of them were hits that guys are going to get fined. The other, Ryan Shazier put his that's something that, listen, my wife has been part of, and a lot of former players have been part of, and I jumped in on that with her. The heads up. That's something where you can have a positive effect of tackling with your head up or keeping your helmet out of the fray, when you're tackling, and that's something that can be worked on. It's these other hits where I do think players are trying to not blow somebody up as much, or at least hit them in the head, to use their shoulders more than leading with their head. And I do think that is a good thing. So here's the battle we're fighting. This is a violent, physical game that you will never use the word safe with. Yeah. What you can do is try and make it safer with technique, technology, pads, discipline, and things like that. It's never going to be a safe game. If you play football long enough, there's a 100% chance, you're going to hurt something, whether it's minor, a sprain, or something major. It's going to happen if you play long enough. So what you do is you look for ways to minimize it. You're not going to completely get rid of it, but minimize it as best you can. But not throw it all out.
No.
But let's work with this game. Let's see what we can do as a sport to help with the things we find out that are going on. How can we try and make it better for the players?
Well, that's why the Ivy League in college does not have hits in practice anymore. I think the CFL has done away with all padded practices and hits. So we're all trying to figure out the best way to do this, and we'll see how that continues to go heading forward. Golic and Wingo, presented by Amazon. Everything you need for the perfect holiday get-together, from wining to dining to reclining together afterwards. Visit Amazon today. And we are delighted to have ESPN college football analyst Kirk Herbstreit wine and dine with us today. Kirk, thanks for being with us. Lots to get to today. We've been asking this about everybody that we've had on the show since Sunday. First and foremost, the final four teams in the playoffs. In your opinion, did the committee get it right?
I felt so. I actually, on game day, said before the championship games that if Ohio State beat Wisconsin, that based on their resume, that they should be one of the four to get in. And then I made the mishap, which some people seem not to do. I watched the game, their closing argument against Wisconsin, and they started off that's the thing. I think we're talking about the loss to Iowa. If they would have gone on, I think they were up 21-10 or 21-7. If that game would have finished 49-7, I think we might be talking about four different teams in this. But if you watch the game and the missed opportunities and just there were moments where you just sat there, and I think even Ohio State fans would have to admit that it was reminiscent of the way they played this year. At times really good, and other times very inconsistent. And because of that, in my opinion, it would be very hard to put them in as one of the top four teams in the country. So that night after the games, I said Alabama should go in, but I thought the committee would do the easy thing, the politically correct thing, and put Ohio State in as Big Ten champ to avoid putting two SEC teams in. And then we did it all morning. We went on for hours. We kept being asked the same thing, all the NFL show. And I kept saying the same thing, and then they announced the four, and they put in Alabama on the graphic, and we have no idea who the teams are. And they put out, and I got up and walked off the set out of shock because I thought it'd be Ohio State, because I thought the committee would take the easy road, and I thought the committee showed a lot of fortitude and bravery there to be able to go out and say we're not really interested in doing what's politically correct. We're going to do what we think collectively is best, and who the best four teams are, no matter what conference, no matter what conference championship game you're in or not in. And these are the four best teams, and I think they got it right.
I thought Alabama should be in as well, just as many people that thought Alabama should be in thought Ohio State should be in. There were some that thought in the blind resumes USC had a better resume than Ohio State and Alabama. So that talk will always continue, even if it went to 6 or 8. It would continue about 9 through 15 or whatever it is. So
we do it in March Madness with 68 teams.
Yes, it's exactly right. So let me, instead of keep talking about it's the right team in, this is what we have. So in the 4 years of the committee now selecting, Herbie, you have listened to their reasoning. You've heard Kirby Hocutt come out and talk afterward about their reasoning for this and for that. So of the 4 years they've done this, if you were to critique the committee for that, not for the picks, but for how they're going about the selections, what would you say about them over these 4 years?
Well, what I would critique is all of us on the outside trying to kind of figure out what they think, because Kirby's in a tough spot. He's like the press secretary at the White House. Like, he's not telling you what they think. He's not telling you, for the most part, what's really going on. He's getting out in front of the camera, and he's trying to kind of hit the low-hanging fruit. But the reality of what's happening, and that's why people try to reason with what he says. And like I said, that'd be like trying to reason with what they say every day at the White House, and you just can't do that. You have no idea what's really going on. So I don't mind. Every year is a little different. I think because it's subjective and because it's confusing on most deserving versus the best four. I think there are people now that are having knee-jerk reactions. We should just do away with the conference championship games because none of them mean anything. And I could see people going down that path. I disagree with it. I think each case is an individual story. Each team, each year, it's different. I don't think you can look at 14 and say, well, in 14 they did this, so they have to do that this year. Or in 16 they did this, so it must mean that. I think they just are in there, and I think they're just evaluating and talking. And I got to remember, there's administrators and there's coaches in there. And the coaches watch game film. Everybody pulls out these offensive efficiency numbers. Well, gosh, look at this defensive efficiency number. And my goodness, have you seen this? Look at their SOR and look at their SOS. And I think if I'm in that room, I watch games. I watch games from late August to early December, and then I vote on these teams. That's what I would do if I were in that room. I'd look at the numbers for validation. But I trust my eye and a guy who watches football, a lot. And if I were on that board, I wouldn't be able to necessarily reason with you on why I think this or why I think that, other than, have you watched this team play for 60 minutes for 13 weeks? Because if you have, you would know that this team, Team A, is better than Team B. I know it's subjective, but that's just my evaluation. So I don't know if I would really, Mike, I don't know if I would just say, boy, the committee blew this or they blew that. I am one of the few guys, maybe on an island, that actually thinks this committee is doing a very good job. And they have different reasons each year. And I like what they've done up to this point. I don't have a lot of criticisms for the way they've evaluated these teams.
Kirk Herbstreit with us, brought to you by Allstate. And don't forget to tune in to the Herbstreit and Fitzsimmons podcast, which has new episodes every Wednesday. Subscribe now on the ESPN app or listen on Apple Podcast. Kirk, I'm with you. The only going back to the blind resume thing that Mike was talking about, we did a little bit of that on the show on Monday. And if you look at the numbers, it's almost like the committee was rewarding Alabama for playing Mercer and sort of penalizing USC for having to put Notre Dame on their schedule. I mean, that's the only thing that jumped out to me when you look at it that way.
Think about this. If we did this in the NFL, this is the part of our reality because it's subjective. If we did this with the NFL, and you sat there at week 16, and we didn't have divisions, we didn't have okay, this team, any kind of rules. They're both 9-7. This team goes in. I mean, it's very simple and safe in the NFL. You have rules, and you have no matter how many tiebreaker rules, you go down the first, second, third. Eventually, that team won the NFC South, whatever it is. Imagine in the NFL if you had to pick teams based on subjectivity, and it's not always right.
Right.
I mean, if you thought the Patriots, let's say the Patriots are sitting there at 10-6, and there's other teams that have maybe better records or better resumes, but Trey, you sat there and watched the Patriots, and you realize this or that or this, and it's just my feeling, guys. I don't know if I've been taught this by Bill Belichick. Patriots are just better. They're just better than the Raiders this year. I'm sorry. They didn't play each other. I just think they're better. And you would feel pretty confident in saying that. Maybe on paper you can make a pretty strong case for the Raiders and why the Raiders are better. But, that's the world that we live in right now. And it doesn't mean it's always right. The Raiders very easily could, in a neutral field, might be able to beat the Patriots. But we can't go by that. We don't get to live by that. So that's why you're always going to have these debates. You're always going to have these arguments. And I get it. I understand it. But it's an inexact science. And anybody who thinks they could do a better job if they were on the committee is fooling themselves. So I'd like to think that considering where we are, this world that we live in, that these people take this serious enough. It's a heck of a lot better than relying on computers. I've been really impressed with the amount of time they put into it. And, I could very easily be jumping up and down saying that Ohio State should be in because I'm an Ohio State former player and former captain. Urban Meyer, by the way, when he knows he has a team, go back and look at him in 2014 when TCU and Baylor were ahead of them. They beat Wisconsin 59-0. He would get in front of any microphone he could find and say, you can't deny my kids this opportunity. They deserve to be there. He's very adamant and outspoken. And this year, he wasn't necessarily that way. Yeah, he said it, but it was almost because he had to say it. And when he got the reaction that they were 5 and left out, he wasn't beating up his desk and saying they need to fix this system. This is the worst system going. He didn't do that. So maybe deep down, even Urban Meyer kind of knew what the deal was. And by the way, the last thing I'll say, we get so into this playoff. The thing that I feel bad for this era of player is the potential quote-unquote disappointment that they won a Big Ten championship and USC won a Pac-12 championship. Those guys are going to get rings. Those guys are going to get their pictures on their wall at their facility that they practice in every day, and they're going to come back and 30 years later they're going to show their kids, yeah, we won the Big Ten championship, and oh, by the way, they get to go play USC down in Arlington. Like, that's a great memory. That's I think the sad part about this all in or bust mentality in college football is, Golic, you played in games that, how cool was it to play in whatever bowl games you played in? And I think we get away from that because there's such emphasis on the playoff or you just had a terrible season. I really resent that aspect of it.
It's a great memory. You're right. It's a great memory for down the road, but in the now, it feels like a disappointment, especially for Auburn, which was right there to play in the last 4. Now
beat number 1 twice in the span of 3 weeks.
Now they're going to play UCF in a New Year's Day bowl. So it seems to be a letdown right now. One thing that won't be a letdown, at least for this one guy in Baker Mayfield, Bryce Love, Lamar Jackson, the 3 invited to New York for the Heisman. I don't know of a person that doesn't think Baker Mayfield is going to win that. So outside of that, David Pollack said Baker Mayfield should be the first quarterback taken of all the quarterbacks what we're talking about in this draft at the next level to the NFL. How do you see Baker Mayfield in an NFL system or in a system that may use his qualities but still in an NFL system?
Well, I love him as a player, and I think the way the NFL is trending, you used to look at a guy like Baker Mayfield, and whether you call him a system guy or you look at him and you look at his height and lack thereof, you might wonder, boy, is this guy going to be able to go out and be productive? But if you really watch him and how comfortable at times when they give him time in the pocket, he'll work through his progressions. He'll look at 1, 2, and 3, and he's not one of these quarterbacks that looks at his primary. He's not there. Then I'm going to start scrambling and making plays with my feet. He's very capable of making plays with his feet, and he's able to pull out of some tackles and buy some time. And his accuracy downfield will shock people at the next level. And if you look at the different quarterbacks that are playing in the NFL right now, you can make some pretty strong comparisons to how they played in college and what Baker Mayfield is doing right now. I can't wait to see how the NFL, when they get their hands on him, evaluates him and how they project him. But it would have to be obviously the right system to fit his skill set. I think his competitive spirit is off the charts. He reminds me of a young Brett Favre with the way he's kind of like a riverboat gambler mentality, just kind of plays with that big chip on his shoulder. And that's cute. And you might say, well, that works in college, but I'm telling you, when he produces and has that toughness, the defense feeds off of it, not just his offensive linemen. So I think he's unique. But I think Josh Rosen, I did the USC-UCLA game, and everybody talked about Darnold and Rosen. And I came out of that thinking Sam Darnold makes a lot of plays that make you go, he is so special. But he makes a lot of other plays that make you go, he needs more reps. If I were around him in his camp, I would say, hey, let's play another year of college football and try to get more consistent from the pocket. But Josh Rosen, he is a superstar. And he's another guy that if you listen to some of the people talk about him and some of the stuff he says, some people talk about, does he really love the game and things of that nature. From being around him and watching him, he would be your prototypical, put him in a pocket, let him make decisions, let him throw the ball, command of the offense, making checks at line of scrimmage, coming out of a jetfish offense, which is kind of a West Coast NFL system. So I think Rosen will be the guy that all the NFL people will fall in love with. But Baker Mayfield, I think 5 years down the road, could be the guy that everybody says, well, how did we miss on Baker Mayfield? Well, he's a star.
Herbie, you're right. And look, if he was 2 inches taller, I think he'd be in front of everybody. It's the way it works. I can tell you this about the draft. That when you're in a first round, they want you to tick all the boxes. They want you to have the right size, the right weight, the right speed, and everything else. And sometimes tape takes you away from that. And then you go to the second round, you see all these great players that are taken in the second and third round. Because you know why? They throw out the measurables, and they just look at the tape. That's how Russell Wilson landed where he would. And I think the comparison really closely for Baker Mayfield might be a little bit of Russell Wilson. So we'll see how that plays out going forward. Herbie, as always, we appreciate it. Thanks for being with us this morning, my friend.
Thanks, Herbie.
Okay, guys. Have a great week. See you guys.
Hey everyone, Mike Golic here. Support for the Mike and Mike podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. Rocket Mortgage is simple, allowing you to fully understand all the details and be confident you're getting the right mortgage for you. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Mikes. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLS, consumeraccess.org number 3030.
I just saved hundreds of dollars by switching to Geico. I've never felt more alive.
Disclaimer. Geico cannot guarantee you will feel more alive. You either possess functioning respiratory and circulatory systems, or you do not, or you are a zombie. If you are indeed a brain-starved zombie and you would like to save money on car insurance, the Geico legal team applauds your excellent life choices, even in your shambling afterlife. But we strongly encourage you to visit geico.com or download the Geico app. Please stay a minimum of 500 feet away from our large and presumably delicious, delicious brains.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Golic and Wingo roll on ESPN and ESPN2. I almost said presented and ESPN2 at the same time. I'm not a morning person. We're presented by Progressive Insurance, and all phone guests will join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. So, we've been having a lot of fun over the last 2 weeks about this when the story broke that Herm Edwards might become the head coach at Arizona State. We had him in here last week, and he's like, stop it. I haven't even talked to them yet, blah, blah, blah. Well, he has talked to them since, and he has been named the new head coach of the Arizona State Sun Devils. He will be here this week to finish out NFL Live and also be with us on Golic and Wingo either on Thursday or Friday. I'm not sure which day that's going to be. But we are all very excited for Herm. First of all, because you've done this as well, Herm still relates to the kids. He does that Under Armour game, or has done it every year for the last 5 or 6 years.
8 years.
8 years.
Yeah, I believe it was in that area of 8, been part of it. So he sees the top players in the country, before they go on, these top recruits before they go on to college. So, he still has a lifeline to those guys. He's going to be sitting in the living room with those same guys and their parents. Going forward, it's my wife was just out in Arizona, so she was listening to local radio and said there was more than a few who were kind of not sure about the hire, bringing up the fact that he hasn't been a coach in 9 years. And I find that interesting because if the announcement at Arizona State was John Gruden is the new head coach at Arizona State, I bet everybody would be excited.
Right.
And he hasn't coached in 9 years. And they both have still been part of the game, whether announcing like John has or doing every show there is here at ESPN and talking football and preparing for football like Herm has done. It's interesting how they're going to run that. They say more like an NFL style situation.
He'll be
as
a CEO
well.
kind of.
But the bottom line, the bottom line for college football, college everything, is recruiting.
Yep.
And for this guy, again, to think that this 63-year-old is not going to relate, he's going to relate because he is still around those the top athletes. So to go in that living room, you as a parent and as a student athlete, you're going to be invigorated to hear this guy speak to you.
Without question. Look, he can close. I can promise you that. And he is as straightforward as the day is long. And so at his introductory press conference, Herm stepped up and gave the audience a little bit of the taste that all our ESPN listeners and viewers have had the joy to watch for the last 9 years.
Some people will question, well, you haven't coached in a long time. You haven't been on the field. Turn the TV on Wednesday. I'll be back in studio in Bristol. And I'll be coaching football, by the way. That's what I do. I coach football. And I've been coaching football my whole life. And this is why I'm here today, because of the vision. There's something that a great former player said here. Pat Tillman. He said, when he talked about passion, he said it ignites your soul. Football ignites my soul. It's what makes me go. This is what I do. I've done this my whole life.
Here's the thing about Herm. In today's game, you get guys that are at non-Power 5 schools, do well, and they get to go to Power 5s. They leave and they look for, which is fine. It's a stepping stone, and they go. You get guys like Jimbo Fisher who go from a big-time school in Florida State where he's been there for a while to a big-time school in Texas A&M and make just a boatload of money. They make that move. There's an agenda, with Herm, there's going to be no agenda.
Correct.
Herm is not looking for a stepping stone anywhere. Herm is not going to look for leverage anywhere. Herm loves football, wants to coach football, wants to coach young men, not only coach them in football, but wants to guide them in life as well. And I mean, with all the crap and garbage that can be going on in college sports now, to me, it is refreshing. And don't think he doesn't know the game. He's doing it every single week.
He breaks
at
down
ESPN.
Every game here,
Breaks it all down. He knows how the game is played now. And as we said, he coaches, he's hands-on with the top athletes who are going to play college. So, man, I can understand some trepidation because he's been out of it for a while. He's 63 years old, but I can't wait to see what he does. And
Absolutely.
I wish they take a camera into that living room when he is talking to that recruit and his parents about coming to Arizona State.
No question. Look, years ago he told me he was done coaching, but then I asked him what the change of heart was, and he said, Trey, sometimes when you just – I wanted to feel the grass underneath my feet one more time. I just wanted to be on the sidelines and do that one more time. And he'll be rejuvenated, and Look, as a 63-year-old, he has the energy of a 23.
Oh, my gosh.
He's up at 4:30 working
Yes.
out every morning. I wish I had his energy
Yep.
at my age, let alone his age. Now, Herm is also a guy that will sometimes go off script a little bit.
Yeah.
We also saw that at the press conference when someone from one of the publications that is all into the Arizona State Sun Devils introduced himself and asked him a question.
Holt Rubino, Devil's Digest.
Devil's Digest, huh?
Yes, sir.
Where you located, my man?
Right here in Tempe.
Okay, Devil's Digest. Okay. I'm Catholic now. I'm a Christian. Watch out, them devils. Just saying.
Well,
we're good, brother.
You can see devils all over the place.
I ain't taking it personal.
Now, those people are saying he didn't know that the Arizona State Sun Devils were the mascot.
Yeah.
Of course, Herm knew the Sun Devils were the mascot. He was just having fun with the guy.
I mean,
and you can take it any way you want, but that's Herm. That's who he is.
That is Herm.
Yeah,
he is. I am so looking forward to it. I really am, because, as I said, this is what he wants to do now. There was a guy that, listen, is about as I said, that there are very few men that I didn't have a hero growing up. My dad was my hero, and there were very few men that I respected as much as my dad. I've talked about this. John Story, one of my coaches in high school, was like that, and Bill Curry is a man that like that as well. And I got to work with him for a number of years. And Bill, when I worked with him, would talk to me about when he was a player and a coach as well, and how some of the things he missed doing that because he was a coach, and how he would change it. Well, then he helped start the program at Georgia State, and he got to kind of do it the way he wanted, with not missing some of the things he missed earlier. Got kind of a redo. And I think Herm is kind of there where he wants to get back to football, but impart his knowledge and wisdom on young men now, 18-year-olds up to 22, 23-year-olds, and give them more than just football. Listen, certainly it's going to be based on wins and losses. That's what coaching is in big-time college sports. I get that. But you know what? Along with that, only one team's going to win the championship every year, but I know they'll want him to get him in contention in the Pac-12 and all that. I understand all that. I get it. But he is going to help prepare your son,
without question,
for what goes on in the real world as well.
Look, we hope to have Herm on tomorrow's show here on Golic and Wingo. But at the bottom line, one of the other things he said at the press conference is, look, if you're good enough, you'll get a chance to play at the NFL. But if you're not good enough, you'll walk out here with a scholarship, and it's my job to make these young men better men going forward. And Herm Edwards as your coach is about so much more than the X's and O's. It's about getting you set for what happens when the whistle stops. And there is no better man I can think of in that regard to have leading your son into battle on the football field and dealing with things away from the field.
Yep.
Golic and Wingo, finishing up hour number 3 on ESPN Radio and ESPN2, presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. And we've talked a lot today, Mike, about whether the game last night was a bad look for the NFL, and obviously the concerns about Ryan Shazier. Again, it appears that there are positive signs moving forward for him, and that's the best possible news we could hope for, and we'll hopefully have more information along those lines. But you know what? We don't talk enough about some of the good things that come out of sports, and we had one of those stories last night based on things that we saw earlier this year.
Yeah, this is on Monday night. These two were honored as Sports Illustrated Sports Persons of the Year, and there were two of them. It was J.J. Watt, and it was Jose Altuve. Watt, if you remember, raised more than $37 million.
Crazy.
It was unbelievable how that went up for Hurricane Harvey relief efforts, and Altuve led the Astros to their first World Series title, both giving hope to the city as it picked up the pieces from that incredible storm. So on Monday night, the two were honored by Sports Illustrated, given the magazine's prestigious Sports Person of the Year award. Their executive editor, Steve Cannella, said they chose the pair because Watt and Altuve perfectly embodied the Houston Strong slogan the city adopted in the wake of the August hurricane and its catastrophic flooding. So congrats to those two guys. I mean, it was, what went on there. I'm still amazed at what was the initial J.J. Watt wanted as a goal?
He wanted to try and raise $200,000.
$200,000, and it got to $37 million, which is unbelievable.
And the amazing thing about that was, look, there was one benefactor, Charles Budd of H-E-B Food Stores, that donated $5 million.
Right.
But for the most part, this was the best possible use of social media. He just put it out there on Twitter and Instagram. Hey, I'm trying to raise this money. And, in an ironic use of words, the floodgates opened, for what was happening in Houston. Right. Everybody just bought into this thing, and he kept raising it and putting a new update, a new goal, and a new goal. I don't think JJ had any chance and a thought in his mind that he'd get to $5 million, let alone $37 million. And for all the people that say stick to sports, hey, if J.J. Watt hadn't stuck to sports, we might be $37 million short of all the relief money that went to Houston after Hurricane.
And then, of course, what the Astros being down there, you can't overlook what a team playing in a city after some devastation can mean. I remember after Katrina hit New Orleans, and the first time Greeny and I did a show down there after that, when they were going to have that Monday night game, people were just saying, thanks for being down here. We're happy your network is down here. Please spread the word that, we want to be back, for people to come back here. So to have that event there and for the Astros to do what they did and to be there, and it's so different, obviously, in baseball and basketball and hockey, where it's a series and you're there for a number of games like they were, just had to mean so much to the city. So award well-deserved for those two guys.
Absolutely. I was actually at New Orleans doing something else like 2 weeks before it hit, or maybe 8 days before Katrina hit. Then to see that unfold was just amazing, and to see that city bounce back. I went back a year later to do an arena football game, of all things, with Mark Schlereth, to see it come back, and it's great. So congratulations to JJ. Congratulations to Jose Altuve for doing what they did for the city of Houston. It was well-deserved honors, and great to see Houston bounce back the way it had. All right, this is the big man's favorite segment. It is time for...
Here's your news of the weird with Golic and Wingo.
Well, it involves a Waffle House, which is...
Winner, automatically a winner. Automatically.
I get in a fight with Jamel Hill all the time because she can't stand Waffle House. How
does she not like Waffle House?
I have no idea. I absolutely love Waffle House. Love it. South Carolina... a man got the cravings at 3 a.m. to hit the local Waffle House.
Got the cravings, did he? Is that how we're calling it?
He was hammered.
There it is.
Okay. And so Alex Bowen walked over to the West Columbia restaurant because he couldn't sleep because he was
hammered.
After seeing no other workers on the premises and apparently not wanting to disturb the worker who was there who was sleeping.
So he's a thoughtful guy.
There was a worker there asleep, and he didn't see anybody else around. So because he was hammered, decided to take matters into his own hand. What did he do? He headed back to the kitchen and cooked his own meal. He documented his adventure in a Facebook post that has gone viral. He got hot on the grill, as he said, with a double Texas bacon cheesesteak melt with extra pickles.
Now I could lose the pickles, but I'm good with everything else.
Sounds awesome. He said, when I was done, I cleaned the grill, collected my ill-gotten sandwich, and left. As he admitted, he said, I was pretty inebriated. You think? Possibly. He did go back later and return to the restaurant, and he did pay for a sandwich.
Right.
He cleaned, took the sandwich, left without paying. Then he went back and paid.
Thoughtful and responsible.
How about it? Waffle House did say that the sleeping employee will be suspended just for a week and then back to work. And Bowen apparently is not in any trouble for his actions. However, in a statement obtained by multiple news outlets, the chain did say, for safety reasons, customers should never have to go behind the counter. The statement also mentioned the possibility of Bowen getting a job with the company since he obviously has some cooking skills.
Yeah, here's the question. Because he went back later to pay.
Yeah.
So what did he come in and say, you know what? Hey, I don't need anything now.
He probably admitted it.
But like last night, I might have come back and made my own bacon cheesesteak thing, so here's $4.
Well, at some point, do you maybe wake up once your hangover's gone and go, oh, man, I wonder if there are security cameras rolling. I best go fess up before anything comes out. I don't know. But listen, I have been in Waffle House in both states.
Yes.
Completely fine, and in other cases.
I was going, which two states? But
now
I get it.
No.
I was going geographically.
No, I've been in Waffle Houses in a lot of states, but in a couple state of minds,
Gotcha.
and I love it. But this is going, listen, you're hungry.
Yeah.
You're hungry.
You
don't want to say, oh, he's sleeping, no one there to cook, I'm going to leave. You say, I'm going to go cook my own meal.
Hey, man, what did Latrell Sprewell say when he turned down that $16 million contract? Got to feed my kids, man.
Feed this.
You got to get your food on.
Alex had to feed himself.
All right, coming up, Louis Riddick will be here the next hour. Plus, we once had the Jordan rules. Now we have the LeVar Ball rule.
Oh, boy.
That's all ahead. Stay with us. Lots more coming for you. Golic and Wingo.